Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Clean and Green Committee. Could I ask everyone to note the fire safety instruction that on hearing the alarm, you should leave the chamber via the double doors at the back, exit the building through the main entrance and congregate in the car park. Also, please switch off your mobile phones and turn any other electronic devices being used to silent. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is subject to an internet webcast recording where the proceedings are capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the public area of the council chamber, the halls are there, it is likely that your image will be captured by the recording cameras and result in your image becoming part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should leave the public seating area of the council chamber and move to the upper public gallery. If members are for any reason not present for the whole debate on an item, you should consider and seek advice as necessary on whether it would be appropriate for you to vote on that item. May I remind members to declare any interest when this item is raised on the agenda. Apologies for absence. Mrs. Bourne, have we received any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Fulcher and Councillor Gorton is substituting.
And I might also add that we have apologies from our usual committee clerk, Amy, who unfortunately is unwell today. Mrs. Borman has stepped in at the last minute to clerk the meeting. So, sorry, we're very grateful to you for doing that. And best wishes to Amy for a speedy recovery. Are there any declarations of interest to be made at this stage?
Chair. Can I just declare for the item on the volunteer litter picking guidance, item 9, that I am a committee member of a residents' association that undertakes litter picks regularly. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, and that is noted. Item 3 is minutes of the previous Clean and Green Committee meeting, which was held on the 29th of September 2025. Are these minutes approved? Councillor Naylor has a question.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Just one minor amendment to the minutes, if you could please. Page 6, I believe it is, 198, the bin infrastructure action plan update. It says that I suggested that a QR code be added to the leaflet. My suggestion was that a QR code was added to the bin itself, so residents could report overflowing bins. Thank you.
Yeah, just on page 7, item 199, the fly tipping action plan update. In the previous meeting, I asked Mr. Houghton about the cameras being placed in Hutton East on Church Lane and Hall Green Lane. So I just wondered why that wasn't recorded.
That wasn't part of a recommendation, though, was it? Was that an action coming out? You're saying that should be in the actions coming out of the meeting rather than in the minutes?
Yeah, I believe it was an action, yeah.
Perhaps we can deal with that under the next item then. I don't think that's for the minutes, is it? It's the action at the back, yes?
If I may, either myself and Councillor Naylor, who asked for something to happen in the meeting, that was minuted. And obviously, if Councillor Gibson did exactly the same thing on a different agenda item, it should be treated in the same way. So either all 3 items should go in the action list, or all 3 items should be in the minutes, but we should treat everything identically.
I notice. Are you asking if we can just note that as an action and then we can follow it up in the next committee, or would you like an offline update on this one?
Yeah, if we can add it to the next meeting then. Thank you.
We'll make sure you get a proper answer on that one. It's just a question of where it fits in the bureaucracy, really, isn't it? But yeah, quite right. It should be probably in the actions, and I think it should have been there. Thank you very much. In that case, are the minutes with that one amendment and agreement to incorporate an answer to Councillor Gibson's question? Are they agreed? Agreed. Right. Do you want me to sign this? Just
That'll be fine. Lovely. Thank you very much.
Right, so moving rapidly on to item 4, the Chair's update. This has been published with the agenda. Starts on page 13. I think the only thing I wanted to, one little amendment under the tree planting at Bishop's Hall, Marconi, Doddinghurst item, under the third paragraph, the plans as they currently stand, we haven't changed the name of the place to the Macaroni Gardens. It is the Marconi Gardens. So one slight amendment. The only other thing I wanted to add was the thanks to the officers, particularly from the Open Spaces team, who I thought did such a fantastic job to make the new planting of the grass, the turfing of the War Memorial look splendid for Remembrance Weekend. Please, I think we would like to thank the officers on behalf of everyone. The Royal British Legion were very complimentary about the appearance of the War Memorial and the new turfing and the tarmacked areas, which of course they asked for as a replacement of the crazy paving, which caused some of the veterans some difficulty in accessing the memorial. Councillor Aspinall.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to echo what you've just said about the Remembrance Day parade and the wonderful looking aspect of the memorial now. It hasn't finished, and there will be some suggestions for alternative planting in and around, but the grass remains, the tarmac remains. I have to say we will be looking at the possibility of freeing the gates that were tarmacked inadvertently so that they cannot move. That will be addressed. But all the credit to our officers and staff for getting that up into such a fabulous state for the day. Everyone was very complimentary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone got any questions or comments on anything else on the Chair's update? Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. It's just regarding the Woodland Management Plan review. Is it just possible that I could just, obviously I'm grateful that it's on the agenda, but can I just advise the committee that the stop order that was placed actually impacts several wards in Brentwood. However, within Hutton South, the stop order has prevented the management of Hare Hall Shaw, a semi-natural ancient woodland, which is an irreplaceable ecological asset due to the long continuous history and the unique ecosystems that's developed within. Just to update this committee, that vital piece of our heritage requires the appropriate form of management, with silviculture deemed the most appropriate and often necessary to conserve the character, wildlife and value as an economic resource. Therefore, positive management. So I'm here to ask that the officers here present will now finally consider how to respectively and objectively recommence the 2018 and 28 Woodland Management Plan, which is a member and industry approved long-term strategy with silviculture systems used. Currently, the preferred option to manage these woodlands is to be undertaken by a non-Arb Association approved contractor. Hare Hall Shaw requires woodland management.
Councillor Slade, we do have a separate meeting arranged specifically on Hare Hall Shore, and are arranging meetings of the tree management group, which will discuss the wider plan. It doesn't actually come up under the chair's report.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Page 19, the Woodland Management Plan review. And part of that is that I would just like to stress just the significance of what that requires, and that the woodland management requires specialist management, and that should be part of the review. And I just thought it was polite to update this committee, because not all members of this committee will be present at that meeting.
Oh, thank you. Okay, we will take all of that into consideration at all of the meetings. As I said, we are trying to arrange one on the Hare Hall Shore separately to look at the detail of that, and also some additional meetings of the tree management working group that will review the whole woodland management plan. That's one of the major items for that working group in the next couple of months. Do any of the officers want to add anything to that? Okay, so that's Chair's update.
Councillor Barber, please.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Two questions, if I may. Sorry, the recent discussions outside of this committee on electric bins, digital bins, was that not referring it back to this committee, and is there a reason it's either not in the Chair's update or not on the agenda tonight? That's question number one. And question number two is, you were talking about progress on Network Rail and pigeons in the last update of Clean and Green Committee. I see that there's no mention of update on that topic tonight. Has there been no progress?
Okay, so the first point, so obviously the use of the potential trial of smart bins was only discussed a couple of weeks ago at scrutiny, so that wasn't in time to get on the agenda here. On the agenda, the work plan for February, we already have a BINfrastructure update, and it will be part of that. The proposal will be, I'll tell you what the proposal will be, that we would do the trial of the 2 bins as agreed, and it will run through March, April and May. But that will come to the February committee.
If I might, sorry. At the scrutiny meeting, agreed to refer the item to this committee to decide. So it hasn't been agreed. It was only agreed to refer it to this committee. There has been no decision on the substantive item.
Well, I'm telling you what the recommendation will be.
We will have an opportunity to discuss the substantive item in February.
Yeah, we just thought we'd already drawn up the agenda for this meeting when the scrutiny committee made that referral to Clean and Green. BINfrastructure is already down on the February agenda, so it makes sense to take it as part of a wider review of where we are with renewing and extending the BINfrastructure across the borough. And the recommendation will be that we follow through with the proposal from scrutiny. So give time to everyone to think about that. The second question was about the pigeons at Shenfield Bridge. Simply, there is no update. It is in the hands of the police to see whether they're going to prosecute Network Rail under the animal welfare legislation. There's simply nothing else to say. We're waiting to hear from them. All right, nothing else on the Chair's update? I haven't missed anyone else. Okay, so we'll move on to item 5, which is food waste recycling to blocks of flats. The report begins on page 21 of the agenda. The recommendation is that the committee approves the planned approach to introducing weekly food waste collections for residents who live in flatted properties. That's the recommendation. I shall move that. Do I have a seconder?
And I will second.
Mr. Ellis, do you want to expand or update the report?
Not at this stage, thanks, Chair.
Any comments or questions? Councillor Gort.
Thank you, Chair. May I thank Mr. Ellis for an excellent report. In paragraph 1.2, the extent of the issue is described, and I'm just struck by the sheer scale of the issue. We've got 250 private blocks of flats, and we've got around 60 blocks of council flats. And of those private blocks of flats, only 10% recycle food waste at the moment, and of the council blocks of flats, it's only 6%. I recognise that we're recruiting a temporary recycling officer, and that will certainly help with the problem. And I recognise there's government funding available for this, but do officers consider that the additional resources will be enough to tackle this problem with the deadline of March next year? Thank you.
Now, Mr. Ellis or Mr. Hartland?
I'll take it. Thank you. Yes, we do think we'll be on track to achieve that target with most of them. We've been working with Artelsford, who has run a couple of trials, and we'll be learning from their experiences to give us a head start. We'll be providing the containers to the landlords, managing agents. That will speed things up. So our intention is that we will meet that date.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Can I just ask, have you started visiting blocks of flats already? Is that in hand?
Sorry, we haven't yet.
Councillor Barber?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, obviously, encouraging people to recycle their food waste is a good thing, so don't disagree with the intention. But I've got to say I'm very disappointed with the status of this report, summarising where we are as a council. And this was something that we obviously discussed over the last 2 years and that we all knew was coming. None of this should be a surprise. My problem with this report is that the implementation date of 31st of March 2026 is not far away. With Christmas and New Year, it's going to be very hard to affect an implementation plan during this period. And at the moment, on page 22, we're told that the information that's going to be gathered in the future will be used to put together an implementation plan. So we actually don't have the implementation plan to deliver by the 31st of March at the moment today. There is little discussion on here in terms of the readiness of the council housing stock to actually store and to cope with this new requirement. We talk about that we're collecting the names of the managing agents for the buildings on the private sector side, but there is no achievement really, frankly, in terms of rolling out the council side, which we've had no obstacle with because we know that we're the landlord. So why have we not actually progressed that further by now? We're in November debating something that's got to go live for statutory reasons by March 26. I noticed that of all the financial implications, we simply talk about the funding that's being provided by central government in order to facilitate the change. We don't actually have any estimates of how much the housing team will be spending on actually changing the bin stores in various flats and the impact on us financially. We don't have any costs on our side of what's involved at all. We just told what the funding available to the council is going to be on it. There is, once you concentrate the storage of food deposits into particular areas, you're also going to have to ensure that you deal with rodents and infestation of rats and mice, because we know that a lot of that gets put in the black bags at the moment, so we do know it's an issue, but when it's concentrated into particular locations, it has health and safety issues. So how this report says there are no health well-being implications on page 24 is kind of a bit surprising, because storing food for weekly collection in large collection points is going to be one that actually does have a hygiene issue. So for me, there's an awful lot of detail missing, and we should have been much better prepared for this mandatory change, which we've all known about for years, literally. So I will have to abstain because I can't vote against it, but I can't vote for it in its current state. It's not good enough as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Mr. Ellis, would you like to comment on how prepared we are for rolling this out?
Yeah, it should be a fairly straightforward undertaking. The onus is on the managing agents and development managers to communicate the message to their tenants. The containers are those that have been used elsewhere. There will be a wheeled bin with a lid on top, so the health implications should be reduced in that respect as well. And I would say that we're probably on par with a number of the other Essex boroughs in terms of progressing towards the end of March target. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? No? In which case, I'll put the recommendation to the vote, which is that we approve the planned approach to introducing weekly food waste collections for residents who live in flatted properties. Can I see those in favour? Those against? And abstentions? And that is passed with 4 abstentions. So moving on to item 6, which is the report on the pilot waste collection scheme. This report begins on page 27. Mr. Ellis, do you have anything to add? Or Mr. Houghton? Who's going to go on this one?
So I think just to, good evening members, just to provide a sort of further update on figures. So I think we've covered 2 sort of cycles of collection, and so the latest sort of 2 weeks of collections has sort of yielded more tonnage and a slightly lower recycling rate, but it's still a good recycling rate of 47%. So that's still encouraging. So it's about a 10% shift. So that's an update. So this is in the last 2 weeks of data. So this is 2 weeks behind the data you've got here. So in the last 2 weeks, that would add to that as well. I think that, you know, if I can bring your attention to paragraph 2.14, there, I think, and 2.15 on page 30 and on 31, I think we were concerned that although the recycling rates had increased, I think we've been quite open about the tonnages had actually reduced, and we weren't clear where that tonnage was going. So what you can see is a balancing back out. So I think people are looking to adjust to the new recycling regime. But I think the conclusion is it's going to take a few more weeks to sort of have any real understanding of the trend.
Councillor McShane first.
Yes, I was just noting you did bring it up, but it was only 4 weeks that it's been in, which is far too soon. Plus it was over the beginning of September. People were still coming back from the holidays then, so I think we've got to wait for a longer period.
And Councillor Gorton.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. And thank you to Mr. Ellis and Mr. Houghton for this report and update. Obviously, I'm a ward member for Ingatestone, so this is close to my heart. It's good to observe that greater than 10% of households in this pilot have requested new food caddies. Is there any way we can encourage this uptake of food waste recycling further? I noticed that from the pie chart that before the scheme was introduced, 1/3 of the residual waste, the black bag waste, was found to be food waste. So is there any way we can encourage greater uptake of food waste recycling in this pilot. Thank you.
Yes, so we're considering issuing a thank you card for the residents for participating, and we'll take the opportunity to promote food waste as part of that. And then we're going on to do an engagement piece of work in February, and we can also look at that there. And I believe we're also looking to get an article in the Borough magazine for the spring, where we'll be promoting food waste again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis.
Councillor Gerald?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if, Mr. Ellis, if you know how many people in that trial area already have the food caddies? We've added another 50, but do you know what the percentage is roughly?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
Councillor Barber.
Councillor Barber?
Thank you. Can I ask a question, please? So we did say in earlier meetings that larger families would be able to request a larger residual waste bin. Could I ask of the 500 households which were participating in this trial, how many of them requested the larger bin, please?
Mr. Ellis, have you got that information to hand?
I don't have it to hand. I'm sure it's something we can get.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Naylor.
For those households that are presenting larger capacity bins or additional bins, are we still collecting from those bins?
Yes, we are at the moment. We're adopting a sort of a graded approach, and initially our focus is on those customers who are presenting side waste, so bags alongside their bins. As the trial progresses, we will focus a little bit more on people that are presenting larger bins.
And by graded approach, you are perhaps considering that it is not appropriate to be collecting larger capacity bins in order to solve the issue?
But that was the reason why we opted for the 180 litre bin to try and restrict the waste. It's just dealing with each challenge at a time, I think, is where we are at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Gibson?
Yep, just in relation to point 2.2, rollout of the trial, it said we had 2 complaints prior to the rollout. Has there been any further complaints since?
I would have to check, but I don't recollect any more complaints since, no. I mean, certainly, in terms of anecdotally, in terms of number of missed bins, it seems to be settling around. I think we missed 2 bins on the 500 this time around, so we've missed. So it gives you an idea the level of conflict has reduced, and it seems to be overall being, I think, anecdotally quite well received.
Anyone else? Councillor Naylor again?
Sorry, thank you, Chair. I wasn't aware that we had an accurate weighbridge. Is that the case?
So the answer is no. So what we do is we have to send those off to be weighed. Hence why you have a smaller pilot. So at the end of the 500, they go off and deposit to Weybridge then. So we haven't got a Weybridge down at the depot, but we are actually dropping off each load directly to where it needs to be deposited with the Weybridge. So they are accurate weight. Thanks.
Right, in that case, Councillor Patel.
Just a quick question about this. It's 4 weeks worth of trial where we have 2 weeks worth of data available. Do you not think that it's too premature to come to the committee for accepting this report?
Well, I think our view is that we wanted to keep people up to date with how the trial was going. It is very early stage, but we thought it would be quite useful to share the data we had from the first 4 weeks of the trial with you, which is just about being open and trying to just keep people well informed about how it's going.
I think we should have waited for a bit longer period and with wide. If you're trialing it, then I think we should have a lot more data before even it come to us to consider something. Excuse for my voice. My voice is not great, unfortunately, but yeah. But That's what I was thinking, 4 weeks worth of trial. I don't think it's sufficient data in 2 weeks to collect. We haven't got in whole 4 weeks data either. So I think all this discussion just for 2 week worth of data is a bit, I think it's a bit too premature, to be honest.
Not asking the committee to make any decisions, we're just sharing the data that we have at this stage. The fuller reports will come to the February meeting, which is when we will look at how the trial is going and make a decision, because this is something we left open, is to whether we extend the trial and run it for a little bit longer to get some richer, deeper data. And that's the decision that will be made in February. Really just asking you to note this is the data we have from the first few weeks. Councillor Aspinall.
Chairman, I'm amazed. The difference between this administration and the previous administration is open, transparent and informative. And we will share with all councillors whatever update and progress we make on any new initiatives that's going forward, including problematic issues, so that we can address them. I find it rich that we are, perhaps I heard you wrong, but being criticised for bringing information to you at the earliest possible stage. There is no other Clean and Green meeting, I believe, until February. So to tell you now of the progress of a brand new scheme that we've introduced, which had cross-party backing, cross-party info leading up to that, I think it's quite rich. But it does highlight to the watching millions that there is a distinction between what happened in the past and what is now happening today. And incidentally, on that issue, Chair, of recycling, it is visible from those watching members, millions on the web, that this side of the chamber has decided that it's going to be completely paperless tonight, and hopefully for the future. Not so the other side.
I don't think we want to open the debate.
Opinion.
Thank you, Councillor Aston. Councillor Naylor, as long as it's not about paperless committees.
Thanks, Chair, for my third go. I think there are some initial positives in this report, including an increase in the recycling rate, an indicator of success we as a council must achieve. And whilst I see there are some challenges ahead, I'm confident from the answers from the officers that these will be addressed. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I echo what Councillor Aspinall said about our desire to be open and transparent. That's what we're trying to do. We've always said that this trial was about gathering evidence. The aim of the trial is to see how best we can raise our appalling recycling rates. That's the beginning and the end of the raison d'etre for this trial. And I think it's very positive that the initial indications are that it has been successful in that. And if that's carried through, then we can, when we come back in February, hopefully we'll have some really substantial data that will show how best to raise our terrible recycling rates. Don't forget, we are the worst in Essex by some way. We are almost heading towards the bottom decile for recycling rates in the country. We cannot stay there. We have to do something, and this is our attempt to find a way, an evidence-based, data-led way of addressing that problem. So we will come back in February with more data, with more evidence, and hopefully we can have a very open and informative discussion about the best way forward from there. Right, in that case, I'll put the recommendation to the vote. Can I see those in favour of the recommendation, which is just to note the contents of this report? Anyone against? Abstentions? That is carried. So moving on to item 7, which is the update on the pesticide reduction trial. This begins on page 35 of the agenda. Mr Aldridge, do you have anything to add at this stage?
Good evening, members, and no thank you, Chair, nothing further to add.
So okay, the recommendation is to continue to follow the guidance detailed within the Council pesticide policy and aim for continued reduction of glyphosate in our parks and open spaces. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gerrard, thank you. Any comments or questions on this report? Councillor Gorton.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this report, Mr Aldridge. I think the alternatives to glyphosate and what's the other one called?
The other one, you can't pronounce it.
Yes. And the flasofuranone, that one. Well, first of all, can I ask, are those close sprayed together?
Yes, they can be.
And can I come back? You've not mentioned any precautions that, as such, which are taken when doing that spraying. I presume, well, can you outline to us what PPE is provided to operatives doing the spraying? And secondly, what training and certification have they got?
Thank you, Councillor. Yep, so depends what they're spraying, but so every chemical will have its own safety data sheet and will follow the instructions within the safety data sheet and their training. So it could range from gloves and boots to coveralls and face masks on that one. And then training, all of our operatives are trained to NPTC standards, and we follow the legislation from under COSH.
Thank you.
Councillor McShane.
Yes, obviously the cost of the foam is prohibited. So also I'd like to know, what is the chemical in the foam? Because I do know that on the farm sometimes the wetters that we have in some of our chemicals is actually worse than the chemical itself. So it's not, free from. Well, I can't think of the word now, but it's not totally pesticide free by using foam. And I don't know whether we're talking on now. I was just going on to the tree, the oak trees. Hang on, which page is that? Page 47. Yes, the moths that you're going, and what chemical are you going to use to kill these moths, and who's going to do it?
Thank you for your questions, Councillor. Yes, I agree. Nothing is totally free from any harm. And talk about the wetting agent, it is a detergent-based chemical, and everything comes with its own safety data sheets. I don't know the exact impact. I guess the difference is, or what is sold at, is it is a non-toxic alternative to the use of glyphosate. In regards to the OPM, I don't have the answer for you right now. We normally give that to specialist contractors to undertake because it can be quite a nasty exercise, but I'm more than happy to get that information and come back to you. We have various contractors that we may use, but those that specialise in dealing with pests.
Aspect of the appendix is to, it's just to give you a full picture of remind you of what the policy is that we agreed. This is just focusing on the use of the phasing out pesticides. I think the OPM issue is a tricky one, and I think it's one where I would expect in a future committee we would have a more detailed report on it, should we need to take a lot of action across the borough. And I think that would be fair, Mr Aldridge, wouldn't it?
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. My comments actually relate to oak processionary moth, so if I may be permitted to give my questions, but I can understand from what you've just relayed if the answers need to come back. So can I give state my questions regarding OPM?
Well, if you just frame it as a question, because I do think that we'll need to have a more detailed report on this. So, Ms Houghton, did you want to say something at this stage? Or should we wait for Councillor Slade's question?
Oh, sorry. I mean, I'm happy to take the question. Just for clarity, the policy is something we've already adopted. So the detail of the policy you're asking about is something that we've already adopted. So it's just to be clear. So in terms of, although I'm happy to take the questions on it, you know, debating the policy is something that you've voted upon previously. Just for clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously page 47 states that the council has confirmed populations of OPM, BTM. Looking at the Tree Council toolkit for local authority, I understand that these sightings need to have been reported either using Tree Alert or by email to opm@forestrycommission.gov.uk. So therefore then have the sightings been reported? The government separates the UK into nationally defined geographical zones for OPM management. Which zone does BBC fall into, or the Brent Borough Council fall into, and has a statutory plant health notice been issued? Obviously, I understand there's approved treatment for OPM, which should be applied by trained professionals, so it's good to hear that we do go out to specialists or contractors. But as a Borough Council, while we required to take out additional insurance, including public liability insurance for the work?
Are you able to answer those now, or do we need to take that one offline?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So I'm not prepared for those questions, but I'll happily find the answers and bring them back to you.
Thank you very much. Sorry.
Would you like me to send those questions in?
Yes, please. Welcome.
I think Councillor Barber wanted to speak.
Thank you, Chair. It goes as no surprise that I'm going to vote against this recommendation to continue the policy. To be honest with you, at the time when this was first discussed, we said that things like flame weeders were ridiculous ideas. You say in the report that the method is suitable for targeted spot treatment, and then further down you say it's an operational risk to carry that equipment within council vehicles. We shouldn't be reviewing options which are discounted so quickly. I'm sure you could have looked at other councils' experiences and discounted them. There's no mention anywhere of mechanical removal. Some of the most effective removal of weeds is simply to send the road cleaner across a footpath or a curb area to remove weeds. You are essentially moving to a system which is 57 times more expensive under 1.19. You're going from 3p a square metre to £1.70 a square metre. That is going to naturally curtail the area that you're going to be able to keep clear. Under section 1.15 and 1.16, you make the point that foam stream basically was unable to fully eliminate weed roots on hard surfaces, resulting in early regrowth in the trial areas. And you actually say below that traditional methods remain weed-free for up to 6 months. You're going to see a deterioration with adopting this policy. You're also then talking about the purchase of dedicated vehicles and dedicated staff. Sorry, you're shaking your head, sorry.
Sorry, Councillor, I think you've misunderstood the recommendation. We are not adopting the foam spray.
So what's, sorry,
Yeah.
would you like to repeat then what you're,
Yeah.
You're aiming for the continued reduction through what means? Just to be clear.
Sorry, Mr Aldridge.
Thank you. Through the policy statement set out in the pesticide policy, which was approved at an earlier committee. So this report is not suggesting that we use the foam stream. It's suggesting that we continue to use the previous methods that we used, but we aim to reduce that where possible.
Sorry, so we're having detailed costings of a system that we're not planning to use. So why have we been told how much a dedicated vehicle is for it?
So I think so it's set out within the options. I think so it's alternative options. So if members have been minded to pursue the foam as an option, at least it's set out there for your consideration.
It would be helpful to clarify. How are you proposing to reduce the use of pesticides in practical terms? You're saying you're aspiring to do that. That's an aspiration, but how? Sorry, maybe I'm missing the point, and please explain it to me. I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but please explain.
So thank you, Councillor. I understand. So within the policy statement set out in the policy, we're assuring that non-pesticide control will always be the first port of call. So if there are other methods that we can use, typically within the parks and open spaces, we've looked at manual removal, so hand removal if we can. But understanding that there are situations or circumstances where that may not be cost effective to do so, or that it will be impractical to do so for such things as invasive species.
Councillor McShane.
So basically, you're not saying that you're going to use the foam spray sprayed with acetic acid or electrothermal weeders. You're not going to use them.
It does say under 1.5, as part of the trial, the following alternative weed control methods were evaluated, and then we do set out, and including the costs of what some of those alternative methods were, so that you can see the thinking that went into the evaluation and the conclusion that the policy we have will help us reduce, because we do want to reduce the use of glyphosates if we possibly can, particularly in areas where maybe children are playing and things like that, and that's where manual removal might come into use a little bit more. But we're not changing the policy that we previously agreed. We're not saying that we're launching a new trial. We're just evidencing some of the reasons why we've looked at some of those options and we're not going to go forward with them. I think that's probably a fair summary, is it? Not, I'm looking at the officers in front of me.
Yes.
Councillor Gorton.
Well, I think the point I wanted to bring up is just being covered. Page 42, the policy aim says eliminate the use of glyphosate-based herbicides as quickly as possible, where reasonably practical to do so. Next line, reduce and eliminate the use of other pesticides as quickly as possible, where reasonably practical to do so. As far as I think we're all agreed that the alternatives that have been looked at are not practicable at this moment in time. So I don't think there's any disagreement. I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
And I also don't think we're out of line with a lot of other local authorities who look to reducing the use of glyphosates around about the same time as we did. And I think many of those have come to similar conclusions to those that we've reached, that it remains the most effective way of controlling a very wide range of weeds in a lot of different environments. So we will have to keep using it, but we want to reduce it as much as possible.
Point out we've been using it in agriculture for over 50 years, and I'm fine.
Did we see? I didn't say that. Councillor Pound, did you want to contribute?
Thank you very much. It's on page 51. It's just, you say here that the council will seek to trial those available alternatives at the following sites. Can I just ask how long those trials will continue for?
Thank you. Thank you. So this report draws in trials to a conclusion. Within that is the page you refer to is within the policy where we agreed the trials previously. So them trials have now concluded as per this report.
Sorry, have we got any findings from these trials then?
Yeah, that's the rest of the report.
So just to come back, the way you want to reduce it is by using mechanical removal of weeds and by reducing the area which you're spraying it on and none of the options that were originally trialled, correct? I just want to understand that that's because the report's presented very much about the financials around the foam solution, and it doesn't really tell us which areas are going to be reduced and how, because it's how you're actually going to do it. I know what you aspire to do, and I understand the reasons why you aspire to do it, but like, are we going to see some areas where we're going to see weeds growing and we're going to then have a lot of complaints from residents is really my question.
Then the answer to that is no. Unless I've got anything wrong.
No, thank you, Chair. That's right. So this policy applies to the open spaces and our green spaces. It doesn't apply to the rest of the council assets or that is the management of Essex County Council. So it's specific for our open spaces. We'll aim to reduce where reasonably practicable, but there will be situations where we still have to use it.
Would it be appropriate if we note in the minutes that the trials have finished in those 3 spaces, just so that there's complete clarity for the future? Is that all right, Mrs. if we do that? Thank you. Okay, in that case, can I put the recommendation to the vote? Can I see those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right. Item 8 is the update on the relaxed mowing on highway verges. Report begins on page 53. Mr. Houghton, do you have anything to add?
Thank you. No, nothing further to add at this stage. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
So the recommendations are 1, to resume regular scheduled mowing of roadside verges with effect from April 2026, to explore natural regeneration, sustainable planting and relaxed mowing within parks and open spaces, and to provide a further report to the February 2026 Clean and Green Committee on the proposal. I'd like to move those 2 recommendations. Do I have a seconder?
Chair, I'm happy to second.
Open to comments and questions. I see nothing, so in that case I will move to a vote. Can I see those in favour of the 2 recommendations that have been moved and seconded? Thank you. Yes, that is unanimous. I wish all items were that quick. Right. Item 9 is the volunteer litter picking guidance. Report begins on page 59. Mr. Aldridge, do you have anything to add?
Nothing further to add, Chair.
And we did note that Councillor Barber declared an interest as being a member of a committee of a residents' association that carries out litter picking, but I don't think that prohibits him from taking part in the debate, no. So the recommendation is the committee approves the volunteer litter picking guidance as appended to this report. Can I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chair.
Very much. Any comments or questions? Councillor Aspinall.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have to declare the same type of interest. I'm a member of the Pilgrim Satch Community Partnership, and they have a regular monthly or even bi-weekly litter pick organised, of which I've taken part in the past. I welcome this initiative. I also welcome the fact that the bags that we will be looking at to collect this litter in will be of a different colour, and they will be highlighted that they are from this council, and it would be a community litter pick initiative. And they will be left in a certain place together when the litter pick route is finished, and the council will be contacted and they will be picked up immediately, if not sooner. So we have a very good initiative in front of you, Chair, and I commend it to the council members here.
Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, hi there. Just make a declaration. I have organised in the past a number of local litter picks in Morley and around Brentwood myself. I have a question on the consultation, if I can ask that now, if it's possible.
Please.
In relation to the consultation, have we consulted with local resident associations and parish councils?
No, we haven't. I mean, we're just sort of setting out, I guess, guidance on how we're willing to give out the equipment. That's the main sort of thing. So it's just around, I guess, not discouraging people from doing so, but it's just ensuring that we are covered in what we already do to some degree.
It's worth noting that one of the reasons this policy is here, because I was approached by 2 or 3 organisations. One was a residents' association, other were just groups who wanted to organise litter picks and said, have we got a policy, is there guidance? And I felt very much that we needed something to be able to give to those people that was comprehensive and helpful. So, I know that's not consultation, but that's the sort of genesis of why we have a policy here, is because this is what they were asking for. So hopefully it will give some organisations greater confidence to go out in their communities and organise litter picks, because I'm all in favour of people taking more responsibility for their own environment, and I applaud all of those members who take part in such initiatives, because I think they're an invaluable part of what makes Brentwood such a great place to live, and a community of people that really care for the places that they live. Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, obviously, I welcome the spirit of what's intended by this policy, and it's been something that Mr. Ellis and Mr. Houghton have been discussing with me for a while. I am a little bit concerned, though, that we haven't done the engagement with other organisations, not just resident associations, but the parish councils who regularly go out and undertake large amounts of litter picking around the borough, because there could be some unintended consequences of this if we're not careful. The first one is obviously that the implication is that every single group that goes out that participates with this policy, so therefore wants some sacks off the council and wants the council to take the rubbish away, must be approved by the council. And that sounds fine in theory, because we want to make sure that we've got people doing things the right way. However, where we start to specify the fact that they must have public liability insurance and the amount of public liability insurance they must have, there will be many residents' associations which are informal groups, residents who come together within a cul-de-sac or a geographical location, who don't have public liability insurance. And we are saying that they must have £10 million. I've asked my own residents' association to confirm to me the level that they have to see whether they meet that, and at the moment that's being checked. Because the events are public, it's not always possible to know that there won't be a 16 or 17-year-old turn up at a litter pick who wants to help, and therefore whether the disclosure and barring service certificate on page 67 is required for the organisers of that group. And one of the things I think that is a great shame is because the administration did set up, with some cross-party support, a group to engage with particularly parish councils and residents' associations around the borough, that on something which is going to impact an awful lot of people who actually volunteer their time and effort, This might put obstacles in their way which they feel intimidated by and unable to achieve. And I do think I would really urge you to think about taking this away and using that group to consult with those groups to get the feedback from them and bring it back to a future meeting when you've had feedback to see whether they feel that would deter them from litter picking. Because what would be a great shame is that you only end up with a small proportion of people who currently litter picking in the future because they feel this is a step too far and the organisers do not want to have, to have checks on them as individuals, whatever, to go out and pick up litter down their road and down their street. I won't propose it. I'll leave it with you to think, but it would be, I think, the feedback from this side of the chamber that it might be one just to come back to the next meeting once you've had some consultation with parish councils and resident groups, and then we could have a cross-party unity around the fact that what information was received back from those groups, because at the moment, I don't know whether it actually makes them unviable or not. And that would be a great shame because we all want to make our borough look nicer.
Councillor Gorton.
Yeah, on the same theme, really. I'm not sure that there has been enough consultation with parish councils. What I picked up when reading this report was Para 7.0, community litter picks, where there will be larger quantities of collected litter, will be required to designate a collection point nearby to an open space entrance for easy collection, providing a what 3 words location on their event form. Both Ingatestone Parish Council and Mount Nessing Village Council carry out regular litter picks, and certainly in the case of the Ingatestone litter pick, the bags at the moment are just left next to the big wheelie bin round the back of the community centre in Ingatestone, and the litter picks on a Saturday, and I think they're picked up with the regular round, which I think is on a Monday. Will that have to change under this proposal? So I'd like an answer to that, please. Thank you.
I think some of the arrangements do need formalising. I mean, for example, that works while the person that does the Monday round knows to collect that. I think what we're finding at times is where there are changes in personnel, and we're experiencing at times complaints that you've not collected certain litter bags, or we're unaware that things are left in certain places. So we do need a system. Whether this is precisely the right system, I mean, I think I was looking across to the chair then before on Councillor Barber's comments as well, that I do think there's some merit in going out to the parish sort of councils, the commons and community groups. So in sort of taking on board what you're saying, and Councillor Barber, then certainly as officers, if the chair agrees, we'd be minded to take this back to the parish councils for further comment. Thank you.
Yes, as Mr Houghton indicated, I'm quite sympathetic to Councillor Barber's suggestion, and so I do have a rough revised wording for the recommendation. So if I can try that out and see if that works. That the committee notes the volunteer litter picking guidance as appended to this report, and will consult on it with parish councils and residents groups before submitting a final report to a future Clean and Green committee. Does that capture the spirit of what you were talking about?
Thank you very much, Chair. That's absolutely perfect, and I appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much of the sort of, it sets a high bar, doesn't it? Clearly there's nothing wrong with trying to set a high bar, but if too many people can't meet that, and there is a way of having a more moderate approach that makes sure that everyone can still get out and do their bit without exposing themselves or the council to any potential problems or liabilities, then we should try and find that way. So if that's acceptable. Did you catch that?
I didn't, but I'll get it.
Yeah, we'll get
Don't
it.
worry, yeah.
I think we know what we're voting on, do we not? So can I see those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Very, very constructive discussion, very grateful, and I think we will end up in a better place as a result. Right, so we are now on to item 10, which is the Q2 performance. This begins on page 77 of the agenda. Mr. Houghton, do you have anything to add?
No, not at this stage, but I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
In which case I'll move the recommendation, which is that members receive and note the Q2 2025-26 performance report, which provides an update on progress to date against the corporate plan priority deliverables, corporate projects and formal complaints under the cleaner, greener and safety theme. So I'll move that recommendation. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gerard. Now open to comments, questions on the Q2 performance. Anyone want to go first? Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and be quick. Sustainable planting. Is it possible to have an update on the sustainable planting for King George's that was on track for October 25? That's the first question.
Do you want to deal with that one, Mr. Aldridge?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. And those works are now completed.
And the second question was on page 93. I'm not sure, because of the colour of the pie chart, which way round to read this, but either 42% or 58% were not responded to within the timescales, the complaints for the environment. I'm not sure which way round it is, if that could be clarified, but also, whichever way it is, that's quite a shocking number as a percentage. What's the reason?
Mr. Houghton.
Thank you. So, I mean, you're right, it's not good either way. The Q4 is 95% in time. I mean, we had trialled a different way of responding to the complaints this time in terms of who we delegated them to. We've now gone back to the way we were using before. So you'll find that it is a 1 quarter anomaly. So it was in an attempt to give us more time to drill down into the complaints to ensure they weren't, if I was trying to reduce the number of complaints, also in terms of number as well as in terms of time. So I wanted to give it more time to actually looking at each complaint. But really, it's a trial. It didn't work. We've gone back to tracking them and going back to the system we had before. But so ironically, it was meant to improve the times even better, but it did the opposite. But these things sometimes, unfortunately, happen. Thank you.
Any more questions, Councillor Barber? Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair, and I actually owe you an apology because when I've spoken previously, I didn't say thank you for letting me speak. I'm not a member of your committee, so I'm doing that now. So,
noted.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just looking at the corporate projects and the titles of expand our bulky waste collection and review actions to fly tipping, along with improve our street scene through street cleaning. Could I ask that particular attention is paid to the rear of the High Street, William Hunter Way? There's continual fly tips at the rear of Superdrugs, at the rear of Lloyd Bank, and also on the Ongar Road in front of the BT building. These have been areas where waste is left continuously. So given that we've got these additional steps to prevent illegal dumping of waste, could I just ask the officers to just make more of an effort just to clear those areas and enforce when, if possible?
Do you want to respond to that at this stage, Mr. Houghton or Mr. Ellis?
Some of the areas that you've mentioned are in private ownership, but we have cleared them previously. By coincidence, Mr. Ellis and I were around William Hunter Way last week discussing that some of these areas need to be hit again a bit harder. So a schedule will be put in to address this on a bit more regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? I've got Councillor Aspen.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, on that exact subject, we have, as a council, had a meeting in this chamber where all aspects of the high street life, daily life, was mentioned, and that was one of them. And I can assure councillors present that we are investigating, I say, the enforcement team, the legal team, the bid team, others, including the county council, into acts of fly tipping by people that own the shops or people that are in the shops that are doing this. It is not our land, it is private land, a lot of this, that we have to pick up, because by virtue of the fact we are the local council, the buck stops here on virtually everything. So we are investigating the land owners as well as the people that lease or rent the shops and taking enforcement action where appropriate. The other place that was mentioned, where Councillor Slade mentioned, was at the top, at top of William Hunt's Way, and we have investigated and delved down into some of the sacks, which is not always pleasant, and found out that some of those people are residents at the top of the shops, that we will be taking action, if we aren't already, legal action against them for doing that, for fly tipping. On the fly tipping issue, Chair, and the electric truck, you are, and I, very pleased that that has finally arrived and will assist us in the act of collecting fly tips in and around the borough, as well as collecting bulky items. I'm so pleased, and I congratulate the former chair of this committee that you took over for the dogged way that this was progressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your magnanimous congratulations to my predecessor, Councillor Aspinall.
Not a problem.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor McShane. You're still turned on, Barry.
Just at the bottom of page 90, percentage of fly tips cleared within 3 working days. I realise this is quite a problem, but I noticed that the actual is 76% when your target is 90%, so it's quite a bit down. We need some of this fly tipping. We need to find out who, you know, the people who say, oh yes, take my rubbish away. We've got to sort of get onto perhaps a publicity campaign to people when they take their household rubbish, only use authorised disposal people. Because you're right, you know, that's quite a lot down on your target.
Well, I've got to pick up with the targets. So you've got to remember where we've been with targets. 3 years ago, there was no target. We introduced one of 90% within 5 working days, which we were doing very well and we were meeting. So we thought, and I'll be very honest, the officers were not overly enthusiastic when we said we wanted to tighten that target up, make it more ambitious, and we reduced it to 3 working days. And I think the teams have done a fantastic job in trying to meet that target and have come very close to it. And I understand the data from the current quarter is going to be much closer to that 3-day target. So we set an ambitious target and we're determined to keep trying to reach that target, and the depot does a really good job. We know it's a nationwide problem. I don't know if you saw the story about the huge fly tip in Oxfordshire. I mean, how on earth has that been allowed to get out of hand to that extent? We've got, look, thankfully, touch wood, we've got nothing like that in this borough, because we are really determined to keep on top of it. The more we can get the message out, Councillor McShane, 100% agree with you, the better. If you've got large items, bulky items, house clearance, whatever you do, use an authorised, ask for their licence. because they should have one. And if they haven't got one, don't touch them with a barge pole. And, you know, and if you are dumping stuff and we can identify where it came from, we're coming for you. We're coming for you. Because this is unacceptable. So you know, those are the messages we do need to get out. I don't know whether the officers want to add anything.
Could just say that the October performance, so at the moment we were 78% cleared within 3 days. 90% are being cleared within 5 days. Thank you.
I think Councillor Pound indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, you're absolutely right. It's getting the message out. I think an awful lot of people don't realise, maybe sometimes, that they are fly tipping, or indeed how to get rid of waste carefully. So I think we really need, and you mentioned earlier the Borough Magazine, perhaps it could have a very prominent spot in the Borough Magazine, so that people are totally aware of how they should be behaving, how they should be disposing of things. And as you say, certainly checking on the licence, because many people think they've gone to a reputable company, they've done it the right way round, and then find themselves in trouble, which is a shame.
Sorry. Right. I can't see any other comments or questions, so we have the recommendation on the Q2 performance. So can I see those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Fees and charges. This report begins on page 95 of the agenda. Mr. Houghton, do you have anything to add?
Only that if discussion leans towards Appendix C, please be minded that that's part exempt. We're trying to take that into sort of P&C for that point. Thank you.
The members got the point there that some of this would, if we go into some areas, would have to be exempt, and we'll have to close the stream down, but we'll see where we go. So the recommendation is agree to the proposed charges for the 2025-26 year as attached in the Appendix A to F, subject to the annual budget setting process. Can I see a seconder?
I'm happy to second, Chair.
Councillor Jarrah, thank you. Any comments or questions on the fees and charges? Councillor McShane.
Yes, just a tax point of view. There's VAT on everything, which actually discriminates against the smaller person because they're not going to be VAT registered, whereas the larger person can claim it back. And I just wonder, why is regularisation not VATted?
Now, who's got an answer to that one?
I would have to get clarification. I mean, VAT is a minefield at the best of times. So I think some could explain to me, and I still would struggle to explain back to you. So I'd have to get that to you in writing. Thank you.
Anyone else got any curved balls to bowl at the officers? Well, Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee. Just on page 95, with regarding to the bulky waste and the charge of £25 to residents, do we offer any discounts for those who are on benefits or the elderly or those who are suffering from cancer? The reason why I ask was that I met a very angry resident recently who had requested the removal of some furniture. He himself, sadly, was suffering from cancer, had limited funds, and wasn't in a position able to afford to have the furniture removed. So he's just asking on behalf of himself, do we do a discount for people in those circumstances?
Regrettably, no. The fees and charges are set out as they are. And I think that's something that if members are minded to consider, then that's a discussion perhaps to have with the chair after this meeting. But at this stage, I think it's too late to put anything in now. Thank you.
I'd say that unsympathetic to the point. What I would say is I think it's one of those things where we would have to look at its implications across a range of things that the council does. So, as Mr Houghton said, I will discuss it with them. Thank you for raising it. And if we feel we can make any changes, we will come back. As I said, this goes into the budget setting process, so it's not a tablet of stone at this stage. Anyone else for any comments or questions? In which case, can I put the recommendation to the vote? Those in favour? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, well, that is the business of the Clean and Green Committee for tonight. Can I thank members for their contributions? I found it a very constructive meeting, and I think we made progress collectively on several items. That's very much the way I like to conduct the committee. So can I thank everybody present for that, and also the non-members of the committee have contributed as well. You're always very welcome. Thank you. Yes, and thank you very much for watching if you persevered this far.